call the meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority to order. And for those of you on Zoom, you're lucky. Parking's at a premium here.
It's airs.
Yes. All right, and if you will keep your microphones on mute, except when you're talking, but that's always fun to try and read lips as we go through that. So, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 14th meeting?
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Hingham.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye. Item 2 is to approve the airport vouchers totaling $169,088.26. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Hingham.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye. Item number 3 is to approve the individual vouchers A and B. Do I have a motion?
And a second.
And a second. We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Hingham.
Aye.
Lind. Lind.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye. Motion is approved. Item number 4, an update from Mead and Hunt and some information.
Brandon Halverson's on.
Is Brandon there? Okay.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Just providing you with a progress update on the terminal renovation and expansion. So a lot coming up. Right now, we're beginning our quality review sessions for our schematic design drawings and our design report. These are the documents that will be sent out as part of the CMAR RFP, and also used to get budget updates on where we're sitting. The CMAR selection committee has been assembled. We'll be meeting later this week to review the process and then some of the evaluation criteria. The CMAR RFP will be posted in the forum beginning this Wednesday, and then the next 2 consecutive Wednesdays. And then RFP responses will be due April 20th with interviews on May 1st. So you may, if your friends, colleagues are associated, I know you're associated with the airport, after this Wednesday, they may be asking you about the CMAR RFP that'll show up in the newspaper. March 14th, we're planning on having some renderings to present to you. We'll get those to you the week before that. So you'll have some hard copies, and we're going to do a foam board as well that can sit in the conference room for reference for people to mull over, look at. And then we're preparing for an in-person interiors work session for March 28th board meeting. We'll have mood boards there, initial furniture layouts, and then some interior sketch renderings to get initial, feedback and comments on. And then next week, we'll be, as far as the overall design process, we'll be transitioning to design development. So we're wrapping up schematic design development. This phase will be working through the arranged spaces with user groups, coordinate furniture, fixtures, and equipment. This is when the engineers will start doing more detailed calculations and sizing their equipment. And then we'll be doing more detailed daylighting studies, embodied carbon analysis, and building energy analysis. So that'll be going on through June. So that's our next big step. So that's the update. March 14th, you'll get some updated pictures pictures for us to look at, next board meeting. Any questions? It's a lot of information.
Any questions? I have one question.
Sure.
As I drove up this morning and wished we had a parking ramp and looked at it, how would a parking ramp impact the aesthetics of the terminal itself?
In regards to the expansion that we're planning,
Right.
like the overall, yeah, we've incorporated that. We know that is in the master plan, and the skywalk, and we've had specific discussions on how it will relate and interact with the addition that we're putting in. So it is at any time the airport is ready to do the parking ramp and skywalk. It can be it can be added on without any effect to the addition.
No, I was just trying to envision it.
Mr. Chair.
If we had, a 4-story structure in front of the terminal and expansion, would we see the south-facing sort of iconic look that we're all concerned about, or will it be in back of a beautiful square concrete structure?
No, it should be as you're approaching it. Actually, this addition, if anything, the parking ramp I think would be masking more the existing building. So as you're approaching it, you'll be able to see the addition, and then what we were referring to as the knuckle, like the add-on atrium space that you've been seeing renderings for. That'll be very transparent as you're driving up to the terminal.
Kind of front and center. Chairman, Jerry, we're working on that right now with the Walker Parking Consultants. So we're going to be having renderings of a real, loose schematic rendering of the terminal with the parking ramp on it, and probably try to get some sort of model from Brandon to incorporate in that. So that's in the works right now. Hopefully by the next board meeting, we should have something on that. So, and that's the thing, a parking ramp is basically that, and then you skin it with, typically they would get skinned with something to make them look nicer. You could do architectural precast. That's becoming less and less popular. These are so many different things you can skin them with. And they're not terribly expensive, but so we're probably looking at not a concrete structure. Looking at it is going to be a concrete structure, but we're probably going to clad it with something. So at least for this study that Walker's doing.
Great, thank you. I don't think we need a motion for the update. Any other questions?
So just to clarify, there will be renderings of an additional parking skyway to connect to the parking garage at the March 28th meeting?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, item number 5 is the preliminary December 22 financial statements, and everybody's favorite statements. Is there any discussion on financial statements?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
much like farming, Mother Nature and the government control a lot of what our revenues are, unfortunately. So just an observation.
Well, and actually Sean and I are going to try and kind of pare this down into more of a dashboard, so it's a little easier to work with it. If you kind of look, we started on this, if you look at the revenues, and what would be the intergovernmental revenue, the account 330, you can start to see where we had budgeted 4.25 million, actual is 5.906 million. Those intergovernmental revenues are various grants and different things, but you start to see where we've picked up a little bit of additional revenue there. There's not a lot of direct influence we can have over that other than to make sure that we are qualified for and apply for the various grants. If you drop down to the next one, 363 rental fees, those do become things that the authority has flexibility to change and to work with. Not always immediate revenue because of leases and different things in that. But if we start just pulling out some of these totals, I think it will start to become more clear. So if you look at rental fees for the year, 8.7 million, we'd only budgeted 4.6 million. And so the major difference there, Sean, is parking revenues.
Parking and car rental, so, yeah, so, you know, the 2022 budget was created in June 2021. Still in COVID pandemic, and I think a lot of airports decided to err on the side of caution in terms of revenue projections. There was also a rate increase in the parking lot as well, which generated some additional revenue later in the year. But the additional car rental revenue was a little over 1.1 million, just under 1.2 million. What I did in 2021 was budgeted the minimum amount that's required in the lease, which is $70,000 per year, not knowing that how the pandemic was going to recover and passenger traffic come back. So Avis was budgeted at 70,000. They generated 182 additional dollars over what was budgeted. On the parking side, we did like an average of what was between like 2020 and anticipating passenger growth, work with SP Plus to try and come up with $2 million. Well, we shot through that and generated an additional 2.5 million in parking revenue. So we were like over 4.5, budgeted 2 million. So if we take parking revenue,
What do we budget parking revenue for 23?
4.4.
4.4, not. Okay.
So parking revenue and car rental revenue combined generated 3.7 million additional dollars than what was budgeted. And then the balance was basically $541,000 from other sources, whether it was percentage of gross revenue agreements with the restaurant, gift shop, and car rentals. So the additional revenue overall was budgeted was 6.2 million. Like I say, 3.7 was parking and car rental, and then the balance was of course grants as well.
So it's always nice to miss high in the actuals, not in the budget, but you know, the net effect of that, if we look just on this, and this is just account 561, there are two other accounts that will follow on this, but 561 is the major account for operations of the airport. And the net effect of the changes there is we had budgeted 10.4 million in income, and we have actual of 16.6 million in income. A $6 million swing that, you know, is substantial. So what we're going to try and do is, like I said, bring this down to a dashboard so you can kind of dial into these changes very quickly. And this level of detail will always be available, but we'll probably just pick it up as you know, intergovernmental revenue, miscellaneous, rental fees, and then to the total revenue item. But I think if we start looking at this and working with it in this manner, we're going to start to get a feel for sort of nuances and different things. It's nice to have a year-end statement. When we break this down and go into monthly statements, timing can have a huge impact on it. But we'll leave that for now. Next meeting, we'll go back through and pick up and go through kind of the same thing with the expenses. But we do have to recognize that, you know, due to changes in COVID monies, CARES grants, additional unanticipated revenue, which, Sean, I applaud you for having those budgets ramp back down, but that we can can start programming and anticipating funds and see where it goes. But I'm just hopeful that we can get a little more intimate with the financials as we work through. And what I'll put on the agenda each month is just a quick overview of the financial statements. And it may be a 1 or 2 minute report that says everything's tracking to budget, or if there are exceptions, we can start to look at those.
I think the only thing on that is, you know, the city wants our budget so early in the year that when you try and budget on the federal side, which is the 563 stuff they haven't even done, we have no clue. We just found out yesterday an amount that we should have known back in early 2022, we just found out yesterday. So the federal budget side is just, it's really it's a guess, and then plus the timing of the COVID grants that we have, the CARES, the CARISA, and the ARPA. We're still working on a development addendum, Jeff, and hopefully now with the FAA, we've kind of narrowed down our projects. And once the exit plans are done, the East Economy Lots and the security system upgrade, we should be able to move forward with a development addendum, which would be about a $13 to almost $14 million windfall in federal reimbursement.
When the nice part about budgets is they're always wrong. The only exception to that rule that I've seen budgets 100% correct are with bankrupt companies.
Jamie is online from Balance Tax and Accounting, and thanks for your assistance. We're working with Brady Martz on the audit, which is going well. We'll have a team here the week of March 6th. I'm not sure which exact 3 days, if it's the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere in there. So we will have that audit done and presented to the city by April 1st. That's in the MOU. But one of the things that we did work on, and Jamie will recall this, is we did a 2022 actual versus 2022 budget versus 2023 budget. I have a draft of that. We're still going to tweak that. And then based on what Mr. Cosgrove had said as far as creating the dashboard, he has a document that I will scan to you so that we can kind of create that dashboard that he's looking for as well. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Jamie.
No, I'll watch that email. I think just in terms of first year of the audit, everything is going really well. I got an email from Brady Martz that they might not even need all 3 days next week. So it'll be good to get that first audit wrapped up this year. No, I think everything's going well. 1 year under our belt.
So the January financials will lag until the 2022 financials are completed, because there are numbers that carry over into the start of January of 2023 that have to be accurate before we can move forward with finalizing the January financials. Is that still correct, Jamie?
Yeah, we could get preliminary financials done. I know there's one change coming to the balance sheet with regard to the some of the leases, and that is the project that Brady Martz was working on. So, yeah, I mean, I think it would be best to just wait until we have all of the changes for 2022 incorporated. That way, you know, there's just one statement versus a couple of drafts, I guess.
What she's referring to is GASB 87. That's a new accounting process for municipalities, or I guess all businesses this year. I'm not sure what the magic is in making it, but Michael at Brady Martz is trying to figure all that out and make sure that we have the numbers in the financial based on GASB 87.
Yes, sir.
I've got a question on, our friends in Bismarck have decided to eliminate PERS, or they're trying to anyway. And I know that we just went on PERS. How's that affect?
It won't. So
It won't?
everybody that's on PERS will stay on PERS. It's what I've read and what the Airport Association has indicated, that's for new hires starting in 2025. They will go to a defined contribution plan versus a defined benefit plan. So there would be no impact to the current employees.
Okay.
Just new employees. And unless something changes, I mean, we have to watch what the legislature will do, but I don't see any way that they can force someone out of, you know, if you're in PERS right now, there's an obligation by the state, and all of the political subdivisions that are, you know, contributing to PERS.
The existing pension programs are promised benefits, and they're not likely to change going forward. It's unmanageable to have a defined benefit program where you're guaranteeing future payment, which you have to be able to do with non-guaranteed earnings on money that's put away. we'll still be dealing with our liability, pension liability, existing for the airport, going forward. And so that's something we'll continue to chip away at.
So, Mr. Chair, one of the unfortunate parts of that is that had the state of North Dakota properly funded in advance to 100%, this would not be an issue. It's a failure by our government to
I mean,
not
there have
properly
been
fund.
conversations, I don't know if Commissioner Strand is aware, where instead of the state contributing all this money, they would go out to all the political subdivisions that are contributing to PERS to also get an additional benefit. We don't know what that amount's gonna be.
Well, it's, it's happened time and time again with the pension programs that guarantee a percentage of high salaries to retired employees. It's a great plan, people love pensions, but if you can't guarantee the earnings on the money that's supposed to fund it, you're always gonna have some risk. We'll deal with it here, which is a much smaller problem for us to deal with at the airport than the state. I'm glad we are looking at those type of numbers. And then going forward, it'll be defined contributions. Motion to receive and file the preliminary 2022 financials.
So move.
Second.
The motion second, call roll please.
Hingham,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Ekman,
I,
Aye. And if we could, we'll just continue that discussion at the next board meeting. Okay, item number 6, cargo apron, glycol enforcement. Very exciting stuff.
Yes, exciting stuff. So, better than financials probably.
That's a lot better.
Right. Did all of you get a copy of this contract proposal? So, if you recall, 3, 4, 5 months back, we had finished a preliminary study that we had done, and we had analyzed different options to dispose of all the ice and fluid runoff from the cargo apron, which is held in an underground tank on the west side of the apron today. We worked through all those options with the wastewater treatment plant at the city of Fargo, and basically the result of that was we were on a sanitary sewer force main from the cargo apron 2 miles north all the way to the sanitary sewage center directly north. So this contract proposal is for the actual design, physically designing it, putting together all the bidding documents, so we can send it out to contractors to get our bids. So I think Ross from Eden Hut was gonna join. Are you on, Ross?
Yes.
He is, okay. Do you wanna explain it in some more detail on what it all entails, other than just sanitary sewer force main? Cause I think there's some mechanical systems involved for actual reading about the BOD concentration.
Yes, right. That's one of the items that we sort of agree with the airport is one of the things that they require in order to discharge directly to their lagoons is they want to be able to monitor the incoming BOD loading. So essentially, they want to see how much is being discharged at any given moment, and it's not difficult to do, but it does require a sampler that gets the BOD concentration, converts that into a mass flow. So, a sampler that does the math and only pumps up to the allowed limit each day. That sampler requires a small room. It's required to be heated. So around the pump station, we'll just need a small room. I mean, we think it only needs to be 8 foot by 8 foot square, and just heated it up, heated to keep it above 40 degrees, I think. And so there will be a small building there, but otherwise it's just a force main.
Right. So the city of Fargo has set limits of BOD loading into the lagoon, so it has to be monitored you know, so, continuously, so, each day it's not, it doesn't exceed it, so. Any questions on that?
We've had the discussion about trying to recapture and reuse.
That's been talked about. My understanding is, it's, with, there's, in the grand scheme of things at Fargo here, there's relatively a small amount of glycol used, so it isn't efficient to, go through the recycling process. I think it's more, efficient, at a large hub airport, like, say Chicago or Minneapolis or something like that, so.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve contract.
The contract with me, $160,100.
Second.
A motion with second. Call the roll, please.
Aye.
Lynn. Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Ekman.
I,
Aye. All right, item number 7 is wonderful soil testing.
All right.
Man.
More stuff here. Robin Sargent from Terracon is on here, so, if you recall, so we're working on with the Airport Authority right now, a project for the reconstruction of the South J down by the old terminal building. And that, project is, set to advertise tentatively on the 15th of March. And during the design process, we had taken soil samples just to investigate if there were contaminants down in the South J there, just because it's the old terminal building, that kind of thing. So I think I had provided the authority members with the map at a past meeting, but there's highest levels of concentration are on the north end of the site, and then there's another isolated area down by Jim Moore's hangar. And so now what this soil management work plan is basically for Terracon to go out and do 55 more borings to test for specific types of contaminants, and then develop a soil management plan on how to deal with it and dispose of it. So hopefully it can either go to a land farm, on airport property where it'll be dumped, spread out, and then just farmed until all the contaminants evaporate, and then, or if it can't be land farmed, it would go to a landfill. So again, Robin, do you want to explain it in more detail? So you're the expert on it.
sure. So, we propose what we propose so that we can complete in situ characterization. That way, during construction, we can direct load into trucks to disperse the soil that needs to be removed based on the geotechnical recommendations, either to a landfill or hopefully to a land farm on the airport property. It's what we've negotiated with the state of North Dakota is 1 sample per 1,000 cubic bank yards of soil to be removed, which is a pretty good rate actually. A lot of times they'll require us to do a more stringent evaluation, but in this situation we've got it pared down. Hopefully, if we don't have to remove that soil during construction, we won't remove that soil. But we've been a little bit more conservative just in case there are things that if we need to go deeper. For instance, you'll see in the work plan, we've included several borings in the vicinity of the new utilities that go a little bit deeper so that we can make sure that soil is characterized. A good bit of the cost associated with this is the subcontractor cost, including the drilling as well as the laboratory fees. The big cost with the lab fees is the PFAS. we did do an initial evaluation during the geotechnical investigation where we evaluated the, not necessarily concentrations, but the indications of contaminations using a photoionization detector. That doesn't give us a quantitative concentration, it gives us more of a qualitative concentration. So we do think that there's probably some contamination in the northern and southern portions of the project site that will have to go to the landfill. Otherwise, we're hoping that the remainder of the soil can be land farmed on site.
Thank you.
And I will say, unfortunately, the PFAS, that is not detected with a PID. So we don't know for sure if that's there. But at least the City of Fargo landfill has agreed to take that, which is a huge reduction in fees for the transport.
Can I also say that the $176,900 is basically a pass-through expense from Terracon to us. So they're doing all the work. It's an estimated amount, just given the fact that there's so many unknowns, at this time. So just keep that in mind. I mean, we'll obviously stay in constant contact with Sean just to let him know, financially where things are sitting. If we start creeping towards that $176,000 mark, and then also there. In that, I had Terracon put together, separate tasks. So tasks 3 and 4 that are identified in that cover letter would be in addition to this amount right here. So it's one of those things where skeletons from the past, and I've reached out to the DEQ to see if the FAA said this is ineligible for federal reimbursement. So I've reached out to the DEQ to see if there's any type of other funding sources. I don't think I'll get a response, and I haven't yet, but it's worth asking. So.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Jeff, this is all pre-construction? Is there any, during the refill, is there any required testing during, repatriating that soil?
I believe there is. Robin, did you hear that? Is there any testing?
Yeah, our hope, absolutely. Our hope is that the way we've set up the characterization, we are collecting a vertical sample, so we're hoping that we will not have to collect any sort of confirmation sample. I will say this will be determined based on the review by the DEQ, whether they will require anything in addition. We've been talking to them, and they understand that this is not necessarily a redevelopment. This is more of a maintenance project, and so the use is not going to change. And at the end of the day, there will be a concrete cap on this. So we're hoping that based on what we're doing, there won't be any additional sample required.
Yeah, the concern will be that this is going to be sort of an open item that is not really budgeted for, and you don't know what you're in for until you know what you're in for. So
Just keep the checkbook open.
unless we can find some historical artifacts of great importance, it'll probably just.
Now you're going back to Lindgren.
So be on the lookout for very unique historical items.
Old propellers.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Hingham.
Aye.
Lind. Capitan.
Aye.
Ekman. There we go. Ekman.
Aye.
Aye.
I think Eric was there, right?
Aye.
Got it.
Okay.
Eric said aye.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8 is to authorize the attendance at the AAAE conference. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second for the authorization.
Second.
Call the roll, thank you.
Hingham.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Conrad.
Aye. Motion is carried. starting to feel like I've reverted back to my old college teaching days. So, John included a little bit of reading material for us. I hope everybody enjoyed that. We went through the North Dakota, provided was the North Dakota Century Code, setting up airport authorities to give you a little bit of background with that, and then also the bylaws that have evolved for the operation of the municipal airport authority. Are there any questions? Couldn't sleep, it's a great cure for insomnia, the Century Code.
I guess one question, and it calls out in the Century Code that we're a metropolitan area, and there are in fact multiple airports in our area, including another state's airport, which might vote for the conversation of a regional authority at some point as we get bigger.
Certainly be an interesting discussion that other political subdivisions, it does call out, reminded me when I read it, that you can enter into joint powers agreement as well as regional airport authority, which would invite participation by other political subdivisions, both in operating the airport and also with that comes the responsibility to help fund the airport. I think Rick, that's one would want to be right up front with, that to have a seat at the table and be part of the operation. We would be looking towards whether it be other communities in the area, the county, or scale a huge mountain and try and figure out an interstate airport authority that might be really fun.
I think it does account for it though.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
does.
Mr. Captain will recall, there's an extensive file about a regional airport authority from years past, in the 70s, that was talked about extensively. It died for maybe lack of a second, but they met.
Yeah, well, in years past, we had a voting member of the city commission was on this authority. I think Sin City was on it, and Henches and Nick Schuster, they were all city commissioners and were a voting member, not just a liaison member. And then we had the county appointed a county commissioner to the authority, Jeanette Stanton
Dewey Patel
was
from Clay County.
the appointed person. And then we had
Dewey Patel from Clay County.
that's right, and then we had a former Northwest pilot from Castleton sat on he was on the authority board. So it was tried.
Talked about, and this came up 2.5 years ago with some discussions with West Fargo. So at that time, Mike Montplaisir, when he was in the county, ran a bunch of financials as far as what each political subdivision would owe. If you're currently contributing mills in the city of West Fargo to the West Fargo Airport, it would be whatever the difference is. You continue there, but you would also contribute to Fargo if you were to have a mill levy that would be in excess of what would be in place there. Same with Castleton and Arthur. I mean, anybody within Cass County.
One, I believe. Stacy,
How you doing? Good, how are you? Good.
Good to see you too.
Heads up our adult.
Say you're on, you're live.
It's up for renewal, we paid it off.
Can you mute your phone, please?
You guys are live here.
Renew it. It's $1 million.
Okay, Stroll.
We paid it off. Right.
Hey, Terry? Terry.
We do like another whisper increase. Oh, good idea.
Terry, you're live here.
You'll see like.
He's muted.
Come through today.
Who's that with?
That's all right. There we go. All right.
He's just an
Rick, I think
architect.
you've got a really good point there, Commissioner Strand. I don't know if that's something that you would wanna surface with the other communities, as part of the discussions. I know you've been working extensively to bring the area together, but one of the benefits, and I appreciate Sean, you picking this one right away, is just to spur this type of discussion. Would it make sense? But I believe if we're within the state of North Dakota, we can't exceed 4 mills for all entities. but there could be the potential for up to 4 mills of support of a regional airport authority. If there's interest, we should certainly look at that. Funding and usage is always nice to share the burdens on. The second part there of the Rio item, any other questions or discussion on the Century Code and the discussion about regional airport authorities, mill levies? All right, the second item that was on there was just the bylaws of the airport authority. As I looked at those, I didn't see anything that would preclude us from making some of the changes we've talked about. If we did want to embody a committee structure within the airport authority, if there's the desire of members to look at that, we would probably want to bring the committees into the bylaws, how they're constituted and what their mission and goals. Again, I threw that out last meeting. Something I'm just asking to cogitate and think about, because if there isn't really much desire to do that, there's really no sense in going through that effort. Anything else? And construction and security update.
Terry, do you wanna go first?
Oh, now he doesn't want to talk.
He's in another meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
We won't tell you what we heard, Terry.
That was recorded.
Can we,
How's that, Rick? Okay.
Darren, can I share the screen? I know you guys probably see this driving up, but is it a little closer?
How's that?
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Powers took over the install of the metal panels because the other company
Terry, you're not sharing yet.
on,
Terry, you're not sharing. We don't see the screen yet.
oh, I'm not sharing, oh, okay, hold on a minute.
There you go.
Does that work?
Yep, you see it.
Okay. I know again, you guys probably see this on the drive in, but Powers has taken over the metal panels and pretty much got the walls done now. They're gonna start on the soffits here. The interior is done, punch list is almost complete. We have a CO, we sent that to, when we first got it, to Flash Parking. Flash Parking is only committing to a month right now, no date of the month, so March. They're gonna be here, we don't know when in March. And haven't heard anything from them, but it's all going well and so it's, I'm, you know, we'll be in plenty good shape by the time Flash Parking gets there, and so as soon as they're done, then they'll be able to open up the facility. Any questions?
No. You have anything, Jeff?
Yeah, like you said before,
Can't wait to see it.
tentatively, scheduling to, advertise this LGA on the 15th of March. The North GA apron and the East and North Perimeter roads, we had met with, the FAA a couple weeks ago, and they basically deemed a large chunk of the apron as we had proposed it ineligible for funding, so we had gone back and, applied those ineligible expenses to the cost estimate. Sean, I gotta get those to you again, but, I will do that. The terminal apron, we're looking to get we're calling them the 90% plans, hopefully out this week, to review the airport. Tomorrow, the passenger 404 replacement project advertises, and that'll open on the 21st of March. And then, parking, within the next couple of weeks, we'll have the parking lot planned done for adding about 160 stalls where the existing exit is on the side of the lots.
Before you leave, so part of it, the gate 4 and the west ramp we put in for 2 grants.
Correct.
The second billion, so yesterday, the government announced the award of the second $1 billion. They had 658 applications requesting $9 billion. They awarded 104 projects at 99 airports totaling $968 million. The only 2 airports in North Dakota that received funds were Rugby for $500,000 and Ashley, North Dakota for $950,000. So our grant applications were not selected in this round. There's still $3 billion left, so another $1 billion next year and so forth. Keep applying for the airport terminal program provision under the bipartisan infrastructure office. So this could change until we open bids. I'm not really sure what we're going to be able to afford going into this summer. The South GA, I believe we're committed to. On the North GA, we're committed to at least getting enough concrete so that Fargo Jet Center can get aircraft in and out of the new hangar. Not sure if we're going to have the funds to do the West Ramp expansion. It's just a fact of the matter. There's only so much money.
All right, thank you. Stacy, were you able to look and see if you have any ability to use special assessments?
And I did. I went through chapter 40-23 and.
Waited till you guys.
Thank you, I know.
Ask it.
And it really is termed toward a municipality. Obviously, we're a political subdivision, and municipality is a political subdivision. But when I read it, I mean, it talks about the appointment of a 3-person, layperson, special assessment board. I mean, it's like somewhat, as you would know, quite the process to do that. And it's not a legal response, but when you have the authority under 2-0607, when it comes to this 50 feet and having it be paid for by the airport tenants, whether in a lump sum or through some sort of contracting agreement, I just think that you have the vehicle through the Airport Authorities Act to do that.
Okay. No, and it was just
Thank
a
you.
question there as we look at it. Before we make any effort to look at that, I think we'd have to quantify if it's a big sum of money, there may be some interest, but at this point, we should probably just have to quantify what the cost would be and see what the reaction is to the tenants. And if there's a huge sort of outcry for we can't afford that or whatever, then we look at it.
And then I will say, under the Airport Authorities Act, there's no mention of the ability for an airport authority to utilize special assessments.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, either on a one-on-one basis or maybe at a future agenda, for my sake, given the weather incidents recently, I'd like an update on 19th Avenue, where we've gone, what they've tried to do, what the issues have been. And I'm just speaking from my perspective, when the road's being shut down and what's going on, okay, it has been for decades. And I just would like to know more about the whole history of it.
I think that's a state.
I can answer part of it. It was designed by the city of Fargo engineers.
Mhm.
And I know that back in the day, Joe Farmer and myself complained about their lowering the highway. It had nothing to do with the airport at all.
Okay.
It was their standard of work to lower that road from what it was when it was old Highway 81 to lower it to the city standards. Consequently, we had several people killed and one storm back, and I was still in the guard at the time. And then it happened on 13th Avenue South by West Acres also.
There is
It would
an
flood
extensive
out.
file that I presented to the commission along with Scott Lee, the forester, and I think Ben Dow from Public Works a few years ago when 19th was being talked about. There was an extensive community effort in North Fargo, and Al Jager was the head of the committee. They called it the ditch because of the lowering of the elevation. But with the state highway department, the city, and the airport, they did put in the shrubbery just inside the fence on the north side of 19th, except for the areas that are in the extended center line of the main runway. So it didn't act for localizer and so forth. And then the city public works department has experimented with putting a snow fence intertwined with our perimeter fence, our chain link fence. Then a few years ago, they went to a fabric. And if you drive down there now, you'll see that the fabric didn't adhere. There's fabric laying all over in the snowbanks, and it came disconnected from the fence. Whether or not that would have helped any of this wind events that we had here this past year, the 3 or 4 times it's been closed, I'm not really sure. I don't think it would have had much impact having that fabric in the fence. So what other solutions there are, Commissioner, I'm not really sure, other than it's an unfortunate minor inconvenience to the traveling public 2 or 3 times a year. Some years we go 3 or 4 years without closing it, so I'm not really sure what else to add.
Yeah, I know that.
Every Wednesday right now.
You know, I've heard several times by people and some of from the city and stuff that it was the airport that really wanted that road done and to the level it is just for landing purposes, and that's not true at all. Mickelson, I think, was the city engineer at the time, and it was done by the city up there, according to their rules and regulations.
It's almost a 3-foot grade difference. There's a lot of files there's a lot of information on file with the state on the grade. The FAA's weighed in terms of what the final elevation could be, and they chose to go much, much lower than what could be allowed. Now, raising the elevation may or may not improve. Visibility is the biggest factor out there. Of course, there's snow packets around. Visibility is typically what closes it.
Is that a city responsibility entirely then?
Yes.
I just think this discussion, maybe to MetroCog, we should get this on the radar. I know Commissioner Pepcorn has referenced this over the years, and I don't know the issue. But I don't see it being talked about anywhere at all either.
Jim, is it a city road or is it a county road or a state?
It's a city road.
City road.
But it's got state aid though.
It's got state aid. There's a number of parties that would have.
It's just like University Drive, it's a state aid, so they are going to overlay it this summer from 18th Street all the way to Dakota Drive or out to Interstate. So they're gonna overlay it versus, it was proposed to be a total reconstruction, but I'm not sure why that plan changed.
That's certainly something. Certainly join
It'd
the
be good
city.
to have an update for me and see what the future looks like and when, if at all, and who would be the players.
Well, it's even, I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to take Dakota Drive during a blizzard, but that's no walk in the park either, when 19th is closed.
That's your only option, isn't it? to get
Yeah,
here?
it's a little frightening.
Coming off the interstate.
Coming off the interstate.
You
would
can't,
be-
if the interstate's open.
Well, the
I
interstate,
suppose, then your airport's probably not open
the
anyway.
interstate closes on the north,
Yeah.
on the north side of the interstate.
So I'd
goes.
suggest Brenda Derrick and Ben Dow,
Okay.
and there's some state players as well, that if there's any information, they may have more than what we have.
Be a good little discussion over coffee someday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just a few things, before we go, so the elevator, Otis is here and should be operational for Thursday, we believe.
Did you strike oil as they dug down or?
Yeah, the only thing they didn't find.
Natural gas?
Parking you see is at capacity most days in the 3 lots. The East Economy Lot generally always has room. We've done things on social media, our website, everything that we can to try and inform the public. And of course, we're coming into our 2 busiest months, March and April. We'll probably be having some parking challenges, even with the East Economy Lot coming up here in March for spring break. We're doing everything we can with Flint to notify the general public.
Where are they parking? I mean, I saw people along the sides of the roads even.
Well, the ones that are on the side of the road, generally the contractors working on the
Okay.
exit plaza, there were a couple of passengers that parked down there, thinking that they could park there.
We just put signs up yesterday saying no overnight parking. Yeah. But we haven't run out of parking yet. I mean, our East Economy lot still has spaces.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of educating the traveling public on where that parking is located. Final thing is Dan and I are gonna meet with some folks from TL Stroh and an engineering firm up in Customs. When the Customs facility was opened in 2013, they required a backup generator run 100% of the facility, so it's a natural gas generator. They also required a redundant battery backup system that runs 100% of the facility. Those batteries are shot. We're looking at $60,000 to $80,000 to replace batteries. I don't think it's necessary. Customs did forward us some classified information on the FIS that we're gonna look through today to find out what exactly do we need in this battery backup system. One, get rid of the batteries. Two, to find the batteries. So yeah, it's a total redundant system to the natural gas generator. It's a massive room of batteries. They need to be replaced. So we're trying to find a way to mitigate that cost, but Customs will have some folks here from Pembina and Indianapolis, so we review that at 10 o'clock today, so.
You can just plug in one of those F-150 pickups, right? All right, we're going to recess the meeting at this time. We have to go into executive session. We have potential litigation that we have to discuss, so I would ask all of you on the Zoom call to disconnect and ask the audience here to leave us. The executive session is blocked by Central Code. And take that up shortly. Everybody call back in.
Do you wanna do coffee later, or are we busy?
So we have a.
Yeah.
Not today, but let's pick a day.
I think just.
I like that. Telephone number, there you go.
Send me a note.
Somewhere.
So Eric and Paul, John's gonna call you, so stand by.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
You need a motion to adjourn the regular.
I thought you recessed it.
Robert's Rules of Order.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, we have three. I move to enter executive session.
And second.
Okay, go ahead.
Vote on the move into.
Call the meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority to order. And
Motion to adjourn. Reconvene.
Second.
call the roll, please.
Hagan,
Aye.
Lynn, Captain,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Osgood.
Aye. It's the reconvened meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority. We had met in executive session to discuss many legal issues and adjourned that meeting to start this meeting again. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Call the roll.
Hagan,
Aye.
Lynn, Captain,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Osgood.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.